Not exactly sure where I should start this video because it's going to involve the mounting of the condenser for the air conditioner, and there are a bunch of parts, of course, that come with it, and I'm trying to find out which parts go where. Particularly, there are two brackets that have to go onto that condenser. So, trying to figure out which one's left, which one's right. And this is just another, maybe it's nitpicky, but all the components came with a packing list. So, universal wiring packing list, evaporator bracket kit packing list, hardline kit packing list. So, I'm figuring the packing list is going to tell me which one of these is right and left. Makes sense to me because they do have different part numbers. So I have the instructions on how to do it, but the instructions don't tell you. I guess they do. I guess I turned right past that page. There's actually two packing lists, but they're embedded in the instructions. I was looking for a separate sheet because that's the way everything else came. So, partially on me for not looking more at the instructions, but I was trying to determine left and right and looking for the packing list to tell it. There's one on the back of the condenser kit instructions. And there's one on page 3 of the condenser packing thing. Now they tell you which is left and right, but they don't really tell you top and bottom, which would be nice if they indicated in some way. Now I would assume that the way they're pictured is top and bottom, and based on this picture right here, what I decided is the way that you determine top and bottom is there are two holes in the top and one hole in the bottom to mount it to the radiator support. So the driver's side bracket is part number ending in 069, which is this one. Passenger number 068, which is this one. Number 8 fitting goes on the top. So I've got this upside down. This looks to be the bigger fitting here. Number 6 fitting goes on the bottom, as viewed from the front. So I've got to turn this upside down. Over that again. 8 on top, 6 on bottom. Okay, and then since that's the top and the two holes in the mounting bracket go to the top and the single hole goes to the bottom, so that goes on here like this. Now, it tells you that the mounting brackets go in the first and third hole on this. So this is going to be way out here. like so. I guess those line up okay. Another thing that I'm going to have to deal with is they tell you to take the hood off. I have everything off underneath, which gives me more access there. But I'm working by myself. I can't handle that hood removal and replacement by myself. That's out of the question. So I think there's enough room that once I bolt these on, I can actually slip this between the hood and the radiator support. So the first thing I'm going to do is bolt those support brackets on, and hopefully I can slip that down between the hood and the radiator. But for now, bolt the brackets on. Well, that took me forever to find those. I kept looking in the box that this was in, and it wasn't until I looked at the packing list that it said it had the binary switch, and I knew I had taken the binary switch out and put it with the compressor because I wasn't going to be able to hook it up until the compressor was ready to go on. So had to walk up to the house. I'm not going to use the binary switch because I have electric fans. I need a trinary switch, which is wired with 4 wires rather than just 2. Because it controls the electric fans. It provides a ground for them. So I'm going to put this back in, and it's going to go back into the box with all the rest of the stuff here. This was designed to go from there to the compressor. I don't know if the trinary switch uses that or not, but we'll find out. I'll just toss the binary switch in there. Now, this is a little bit disturbing, I guess, because they have all these bolts and nuts, and they pack the O-rings unprotected in the same bag, and they're just banging around with them. I suppose it works most of the time because they apparently have been doing that for a while. But I'm going to need this bolt. It replaces the lower radiator mount bolt that goes through the fender well and provides extra length to it to put the Drier holder on it. I'm going to go put the rest of this stuff back in the box with everything else that's with the condenser, and I'll be back to put on those brackets. Every time my wife sees one of these magnetic nut and bolt trays, she asks me if I have one, and I do. And I seldom think to use it. But in this case, I determined that since this piece of cardboard is sticking out here, I'm probably going to bump it and knock those things off. So I'm going to use it. Okay, so passenger side bracket is 068. number 8 appears to go toward the top, the number 8 fitting. Saw that in the instructions somewhere, yes. Front view, number 8 fitting on the left, and then the passenger side bracket is on that same side. So it goes in the first and third screw holes. I'm going to put the driver's side bracket out of the way for the moment. First and third screw holes here. These are Phillips head screws. Just recalling that when I watched the guy do a 77, and I don't know for certain what his instructions said or whether he followed them, but he was questioning after he did it the sequence of putting these brackets on. He said it might have been opposite how he had done them. These aren't the easiest things to get in because they're on the bottom. You've got about a ½ inch gap between these two rails with the holes in them. And I finally got one started. I'm not going to tighten them until I get them all started. And even then, I'm not sure that's the right thing to do because the holes in this bracket are bigger than the screws, so their alignment's going to be a little bit iffy. Let's see if it might tell me something about whether I should tighten these all the way or whether I should bolt the bracket in and then tighten them. They do have that star washer attached to the nut, so the star washer should prevent the nut from turning as long as you have it touching the rail here. So at least it looks like there's plenty of room to get in to do the bolts. And this is showing the front view on the instructions, and it's showing the bracket over top of the condenser. So not the easiest thing to get started because of the, maybe if you turn the screw with a screwdriver it might be a little easier. I'll try that on this last one. And somewhere in this instruction set they told me to use the original bolts that held the original condenser on, and I have no idea where those are. So I went up and I got 1¼ inch by 5/16 1 1/4 long, 5/16 diameter bolts and nuts, and star washers to go on the nut side. So that I can bolt that on. Okay, so we determine that's the top, and the top has the 2 holes in the bracket. So this one should go this way. Hopefully it won't be a problem slipping this assembly down inside the between the hood and the radiator bracket. It looks to be enough room to get it in there, but the only way I'm going to know is to put the thing in there. I looked at trying to put it in from the bottom, but there's a bracket that goes between the radiator support and the nose of the car that would be right here, and you can't slip it up past it. So that's out of the question. Now, the other thing that's got to be attached to this, and I thought about trying to do it and slip it all in as one assembly, is the transmission cooler. Now, I decided not to do that because I don't think there's room in there to slide for the thickness of the cooler and the condenser. And I gotta admit, I'm not real fond of the way they decided to mount the cooler. It's an aftermarket universal fit cooler, and they just give you 4 plastic rods with big heads on one side, and then a plastic retainer, I'll call it, that fits over it, and you put a pad between the fins on the condenser and the fins on the transmission cooler, and then just snug those things up so that they're tight by actually ramming them through these fins on the cooler and on the condenser here, and then pushing those retainers on. And once you push the retainers on, they say you can't remove them without cutting it. So I decided to do this one step at a time and do the cooler as a separate job, so to speak. And I will show you that. I'm going to just shut off the video right now and tighten those up. I decided to tighten them because I don't think, excuse me, I don't think there's room between the hood and those bolts to get a screwdriver in to tighten them. Maybe not even a stubby one, so I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to hope that I can get bolts aligned to mount that to the radiator mount. So there's the transmission cooler. And they tell you to put this hose on both of these fittings here without cutting it. And once it's mounted to the condenser and or radiator, the way they say it, then you route it and you cut it to the right length. Now the reason I suspect that is what they want you to do is that, I hope you can see through this. These are the mounting strips that you just stick through the fins of both the condenser and or radiator and the transmission cooler, and you put these retainers on them. And one of the things, they didn't tell you which way these retainers go on. I don't know if it makes a difference or not. Because one side has about 1/8 of an inch bump out on it. I think if you put that against the cooler, it's going to dent in some of these fins. I don't know how much of an issue that is. So I think I'm going to just leave this till after the condenser's installed, and probably before the radiator, so I'll just be attaching it to the condenser. And they give you these little foam pads here, there's 4 of them, to put between the 2 of them, and hose clamps and such. So that's what it's going to end up. But I was afraid that if I put this on and it didn't fit between the hood and the radiator support, I'd have no choice but to take the hood off, and that's going to be difficult to do if I do it myself. Might be a little more difficult to get to this cooler, with it on the car, but I think it's manageable, so that's the approach I'm going to take. So I'm going to put this cooler away for now because it's not going on today, and I'll be back to try to install that between the hood and the radiator support. Okay, so there's the view from the passenger side of the hood and the radiator support. And it might have been easier if I'd have worked from that side, but the camera was on that side, so that's where I set it up. I'm going to try to just insert this down between the hood and the radiator support. Something went in easy for a change. So now these quote OEM holes, and should have gotten the both side of my pocket. I had to bring them from the house to make sure that I had them. But let's try and get one of them started here. Now, I don't know what the status of the original bolts were. I can tell you it doesn't look like there was a nut there. At least not one that that they scratched the radiator support with. So I'll put that one in. Go over to the other side, see if I can get one started there. The inch and, I believe these are 1.25" bolts I'm trying to put in, and then I have nylon locking nuts. So, I'm sorry, these are 1-inch bolts. I have nylon locking nuts, so they should be sufficient. Oh, that's interesting. On the other side, the 1-inch bolt came through. On this side, it doesn't. Make sure I got 4 of the same length bolts when I brought them. Well, these 3 are all 1-inch. Let me go see if I can find a slightly longer one in my bin down here. So I'm going to shut off the camera while I search. So I was looking for an 1.25" bolt, but that's not a really common size. And I remember that they had given me an 1.25" bolt to replace the bottom one that mounts the radiator support to the fender well. And I tried that, and that is not long enough, so 1.5", which is a common size, and I do have, turns out to be good. I just hope that when I go to install the radiator, that, which is at the widths, that I'm not going to run into problems with this nut interfering with the fit of the radiator. I'm going to shut off the camera and go take a quick look at the radiator, see if I can maybe assess what I think about that. Okay, I just figured out where the bolts for that are and how they're actually retained. This is the upper radiator mount, which bolts in through those 2 holes in the bracket with these 2 bolts. So, I'm sorry, these 2 bolts over here. So I can't put that radiator bracket on until the radiator goes in. So what I'm going to end up doing here is just bolting the bottom in, and as long as these bolts line up, it'll be good. So I would not have found that if I hadn't gone to look for the top bracket for the radiator, and the reason I went looking for that is because I was trying to determine if there was going to be clearance for that nut on there. So I do have the bolts that are required. They just have this description as you would do it if the radiator was still in the car, which I'm assuming most people would do this project with the radiator still in the car. So that issue is solved. I'm going to have to raise the car now and get under there and put a couple bolts in the bottom, and I don't know, maybe there's bolts already in there. I guess I should take the two that I put on in there out. So they may prevent me from moving the bracket to line up with any bolts that are in the bottom. Having a really difficult time getting light on this, and I need all my hands to these are 1/4 inch screws, self-tapping, that go into the mount here. I believe these are the correct ones. They were over by the lost my socket now. They were over by the radiator mount, so I suspect those are the ones. If not, I'll come back and take them out and put the correct ones in if I find something different. Okay, I'm not tightening those real terribly tight because the self-tapping screws, I'm a little bit afraid that the wrench would strip them out. So I'm just snugging them up. And this one is on the driver's side. Yep, figures. I don't think they line up well. They're a good 1/4 inch off. Okay, the only thing I know to do here is try to loosen these brackets and see if those can slide over. In the meantime, I'm going to loosen the one I just tightened as well. There is no place metal I can hang this light. I'm going to loosen the one I just put in and loosen those and see if I can make an adjustment. The mount's up top where the radiator mount brackets are the retaining nut for them. And that moved a little bit already, so I'm pretty sure by loosening those others I can get the wiggle room I need. I'm going to shut the camera off while I loosen those. Okay, I got it started by loosening 4 of these bolts and the one on the other side. It still wasn't a straight in shot. I had to pull it back and kind of try and flex it a little bit to get the bolt threaded, but it started. I can tell you that one's not going to come loose any way, shape, or form because the pressure on it from the bracket, because it's not screwed straight in, is going to hold it. Okay, now you might recall that I said I was concerned that a screwdriver might not fit to adjust these brackets after you got them in there, but I was referring more with the top where there was potential interference from the hood. You couldn't get this long of a screwdriver in there, no way, shape, or form. You might have been able to get a stubby screwdriver in there. I don't really know. Didn't attempt it, so I'm going to go to the other side and tighten up those bolts and screws. Being careful with this so that I don't strip out the radiator support. That would be bad. Okay, that's all I can do in terms of attaching the condenser to the radiator support for now. I'm going to take a look and see if I can attach some of the fittings that go on here. Oh, you know what I can do? I can take the one bolt out of the, I think you can see it right there. Trying to see if I'm in the frame. This bolt that bolts the radiator bracket on. I said the lower one. I'm going to double check those instructions because that looks awfully low for the dryer. There's a round holder for the dryer. That looks kind of low for it. So I'm going to double check those instructions before I do anything. So they tell you to remove the bolt from the radiator support. They don't tell you which one. There's three. Bottom, middle, top. Hope you could see that top one. But I think it's the middle one, because if you remove the bottom one, that you would have to put the clamp that holds the dryer on so low that it just doesn't seem right. It seems like they have that more to the middle of the dryer. So there's the old bolt. Put the new one in. Okay, next step. So I'm operating from the dryer and binary switch installation, and it says, note, do not remove the caps from the dryer. The dryer contains a desiccant that will quickly absorb moisture from the air, causing it to lose effectiveness. For this reason, Vintage Air recommends that the dryer remain capped until the installer is ready to evacuate the system. I will not be ready to evacuate the system for quite some time yet. So I'm only going to put the tubes that go to the dryer on. First instruction I've already done. It says remove the front fender well mounting bracket bolt that goes through the core support as shown in Figure 5. Figure 5 shows the mounting bolt, but it's not really clear on which one it is. I think I've got the right one. And then it says, install the Drier clamp onto the Drier. Install the Drier onto the fender well bolt and secure using a 5/16 18 nut. Note, refrigerant flow through the Drier is in from the condenser and out to the evaporator. Do not fully tighten the Drier mounting bracket at this time. Hand tighten only. And then it says, lubricate a number 6 O-ring and connect the number 6 condenser Drier hardline to the Drier as shown in Figure 4, which is back here. Note, do not fully tighten the number 6 hardline at this time. Hand tighten only. So I can't do that yet. It says install the binary switch onto the Drier as shown in Figure 6 below, and again I'm not going to do that because that would require opening it. Okay, I guess I've skipped a step or two here. Because this is where I was going after next. Lubricate the number 6 O-ring and install the number 6 condenser core hardline as shown in Figure 4, page 7, and Figure 7 below. So that's here. Goes up a little bit from the, I'm trying to find Figure 4. Figure 2, Figure 7, Figure 5, Figure 6, Figure 3. Oh, it says to lubricate them, that's shown in Figure 4. So, it says do not fully tighten the number 6 hardline at this time, hand tighten only. Note. Okay, once all the hardlines are properly attached, tighten the Drier mounting bracket nut and all hardline connections as shown in Figure 4, page 7. So I can basically put on the number 6 line here that goes into the Drier. The problem I have with these instructions is this is nearly symmetrical, but not quite. The bends are a little bit tighter on one side than on the other. I think it goes this way with the tighter bend at the core support, but they don't give you any instructions saying that that's the case. So I'm kind of winging it again, as usual. So I've uncapped the hard line that I'm going to screw onto that. I'm going to put some clean gloves on to lubricate the O-ring and make sure that I don't contaminate anything there. I'm going to turn off the video while I get the gloves and the O-ring out. I'm going to open up my lubricant. Lubricate the O-ring. Push it onto the fitting. A little more lubricant on there. Cap my lubricant. I'm going to set this aside while I move the camera and go I guess I'll take off the cap on the condenser. Okay, there's the cap on the condenser. It's threaded on. Once I get that off, I'll quickly go grab the number 6 hardline. It goes to the dryer and see if we can get that on. Sure is going better since I figured out that the caps that they have on there screw on. And there's a plug in there. It's never going to go in with that plug in there. As you can tell, there's some pressure built up in there, so okay, what I'm running into now is that this is running into the headlight mechanism. I don't think it needs to be out that far, so I'm going to have to take it off and go on the other side of it. Wow. That needs to go way on the other side of it. Wow. I'm thinking here that it's going to be very hard for me to get the O-ring in there and lubricated with the dryer on and all attached. So I'm going to take this off, lubricate an O-ring, put it in there and put the cap back on. I don't think the cap will interfere with it. This one doesn't have a well, that cap would looks like maybe it screws on. Yeah, that will actually. Yeah, I can put the O-ring on there. Because when I put the cap on all the way, there's room for that O-ring. So that's what I'm going to do, and then that'll be set for when I put it on. So there's the O-ring on there. The cap fits on, and then I can screw this onto the cap so that all I have to do whenever I take it out, or when I'm trying to connect the dryer, is I can pull that cap out and we're ready to go. believe that's in the right position. Not exactly sure how the dryer is going to be able to thread into that. I'm sure that's part of the reason why they tell you put them only hand tight. And I'm trying to make them tight enough so that nothing will get in there, dirt-wise or anything like that. And I'm going to go look and see about the dryer bracket. Okay, the dryer is clearly labeled. I don't know if you can read it on the video, but it's clearly labeled flow out, which means that that label has to be away from me. When I mount the dryer. Wow, that is close there. I wonder if I need to put this bracket on first. And then drop the dryer in from the top. There's one. Ow. That's going to be hard to tighten that dryer nut, the nut on the holder, because it's going to be behind the dryer once you get it on. The other problem I have is how do I get the nut on? The dryer's kind of on, but I have to keep that bracket compressed. And maybe if I take it and try to bend it around the dryer before I put it in there, because I've already proved I can get the dryer up in there with that on like that. I'm going to go try to narrow the gap between these two things so that I can get the dryer holder bolt or nut onto that bolt we added. Let's try that again. Let's see if I can. There's the stud I'm trying to put it on. And again, I'm putting the label away from me. Maybe I can get that on. Oh, that's going to be tough. You can tell I'm struggle with this for a little bit. And the drive is already spinning. So I'm going to have to be careful that I end up with the flow in the right direction. It's very hard to reach your fingers around that dryer and put I can feel the bolt, but the bolt is only protruding from that bracket a tiny, tiny bit. I don't really think it's enough to get a thread on it. Got to be a better way. Okay, I'm going to drop that bolt half a dozen times, so I think I'm going to shut off the camera and try and get that started. So I think only because I have the engine out and the body off of the frame, but I might be able to reach it easier from the other side. So I'm going to crawl under, see if I have better access from under here. Oh, it's hard to get under here at my age. Have to get some of the racks out of the way. It's a jack tray, technically, but it's in my way right now. What did I do with the bolt now? Don't tell me I came over here without the bolt, or the nut. No, there it is, I found it. Okay, so they told me to put the number 6 line on first. I think it would have been easier to put that on without that in the way. But my guess was right. I was able to start it from over here. I'm going to leave that very loose because that's what's got to happen for me to actually get the hard line connected later on. And there's another hard line that comes in on the side here. It's the outline for the dryer. So those are threaded, and the next thing I think I'm going to try to do, since I'm not connecting any lines to the dryer because they told me not to open it up until I'm ready to evacuate it. I don't even have an evacuator, so and I'm actually thinking that this isn't all going to get connected until I have the body back on the frame. Reason being, I don't have anything to mount the compressor on until I have an engine in there. So that engine has got to be on there, and there's got to be a bracket on it. And I think I'm going to fire up start the engine for the first time and do all the tuning and that has to be done, setting the timing and such, before I actually charge the air conditioner system. I won't put the belt onto the compressor until I've got everything. So I've got a lot of new stuff in here and it's all got to work. So that's going to be my plan, to just start it up. I'll mount the compressor, I'll connect everything, and I'll evacuate the system probably before I fire the engine, but I won't put a belt on it and I won't charge it with the R134. So let's see what's next. Okay, my bad. They did tell me to mount the Drier before that number 6 hardline, which, as I said, would make the attaching of the bolt a lot easier. So if I said anything nasty about vintage air there, I don't think I did, but if I did, I take it back. And now it wanted me to install the binary switch onto the Drier. As I said before, in my case, because I have electric fans, it's going to be a trinary switch. But I'm not going to do that because that would require opening up the Drier. And I'm not doing that until I can evacuate it immediately. So next step after that is to install the number 8 condenser line, which goes beyond the radiator support into the engine compartment. So I'm gonna do that. That again says hand tight, and looking at this is the side of it that goes to the condenser. And as a matter of fact, it'll only fit that way because the other side is a male fitting and it requires a female fitting to go onto that. So I'm going to once again lube up, this time a number 8 O-ring. Before I lube it, I'm going to make sure it's not a 10 that I'm looking at here. That is an 8. Lubricate that number 8 ring, put it on the fitting, add some additional lube to it. And it's time to move the camera and take off the cap that's on the condenser. So it seems like that one's going to be a little easier to deal with from the top. So I lowered the body and I'm going to try and remove the cap here. Probably has a little seal in it too, because the bottom one did. Yep. Get that out of the way. Let's see if we can get this routed around through here. And this is one of those things where I may have screwed up again because I didn't read the instructions as thoroughly as I could, because I think it told me to put this one on first, and I didn't do it. So if I've made it difficult on myself, it's nobody's fault but my own. I think this would have been easier to insert from the front. Without the Drier in there. So I may be going back and taking all that off. Trying to go in between the hood and the front of the car. The other thing that might be a problem here is they're expecting the hood to be off. And I don't want to take it off because I don't have anybody to help me put it back on. So close, I'm almost there. It's almost like if I would lower the hood a little bit, it would go in. But unfortunately the latch is on the other side of the car. And it might make it hard to do. Gonna try it. That's going to work, except now I've got hoses in my way there that I really don't want the hood to come down on. Put them up over the fender to get them out of the way, and now they're in the way. that gets it past the hood if that's what's interfering. But now I'm going to have to lift the hood on this side so that I can work on it. And at the same time, try to make sure I don't get that. There we go. Go latch that hood a bit better on the other side so it doesn't come down on my noggin. Yeah, it would have been better if I'd have read the instructions properly. It should be the number 8 hose, the Drier, and then the number 6. And I did them exactly the opposite. So, we got to get this. It's going to be a challenge. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I made that a little bit harder than it should have been by doing them in reverse order, but I think we're good. And I can check to see if I can add another hose to the end of this. It might be the hose that goes to the back of the compressor, because I don't think I think the number 6 is the return, and I don't think that's going to be able to be attached because of the Drier. We shall see though. Maybe I can do it and just not attach the other hose, the other hard tube to the Drier. Because that hose is flexible and should be able to be connected, I would think. So I figured out why I was confused by the instructions. And let me say this the right way now. The first thing is to install the Drier. The second thing is to install the Condenser Drier hardline. And the reason I was confused is because there's a Drier core hardline. And I was reading number 6 and getting these two confused. So the third thing you install is the number 8 that we just put in. And the last thing is the Drier core hardline, which has to be in. And I've lubricated the O-ring in here because eventually I'm going to have to connect that to the Drier. And this is going to be in there somewhat like that. Because as it turns out, the Drier goes in kind of crooked. It's connected to the condenser hardline over here, closer to the engine than this condenser or Drier core hardline over here. Now, as I said before, I've lubricated those O-rings so that when I take it out, all I have to do is connect them and I'm done. So that went in much easier. I tried from the top just as a test fitting and wasn't having much success there, so I raised the car up again and I didn't do a test fitting. This is, you saw my testing right here. So that went in pretty easy if you go in from underneath the nose of the car. I don't know if you had the hood off and the nose on. I don't know how hard that would be. I don't think it would be too hard, but it would be definitely different. You'd have to do it probably from the top. But for now, that's about in position to be connected to the dryer. It'll have to be rotated a little bit to line it up, but other than that, I think it's in pretty good position. I'm going to put the car down again and see if I can connect anything else. So that's the end of those instructions. The only thing left to do is to connect the dryer, the binary or trinary switch, and then tighten up all those fittings. So I got to revert back to the original instructions and see if I can find where we are on that. Seems to me that they did that pretty early in the process. So and tell me there's no instructions on what to connect. Oh, I bet you I know where they are. At least some of them. Some of them probably are with the compressor, which I don't have the compressor instructions with me. They're up at the house with the compressor. But I think there's only a couple more things, and they're all different sizes, so you can't really screw them up. This is where they come out of the firewall. Okay, standard hose kit. Locate the number 8 compressor hose. Connect it to the, I've done these. I've done the number 8. No, I haven't. That connects to the compressor. Route the 45-degree female fitting to the number 8 condenser hard line coming through the core support. So I could put that one on. And then locate the number 10 compressor AC hose. Lubricate the O-rings to the compressor. Route the straight fitting to the number 10 evaporator hardline coming through the firewall. Now I could probably put that number 10 hose onto the hose coming from the firewall. And then locate the number 6 hose, lubricate it, connect the 90 to the hard line coming through the core support from the Drier. Touch straight in to the, I already have that connected, so I can do a couple connections here. I can do the number 8 to the hard line coming through the core support. I will do that now. Okay, talking and not recording. That is the end that's going to be connected to the compressor. This is the end that is going to be connected to the hard line, number 8 hard line coming from the condenser. So there was already, when I took the plug out, there was already an O-ring on there, so I just lubricated it. And I'm going to shut the camera off because I'm going to take it over to the other side of the car. You'll see better. Okay, over there is the hard line coming through the radiator support. That's the one we're going to be hooking up to. We're going to hook up to the number 8 on that. And later the number 6 will hook up to the other line. So these are these fittings both turn. Neither one of them is solid or connected, so basically we're going to insert that spot with the O-ring there, and then with the connector. Now, this is one of those ones where it tells you tighten this one. I'm not going to tighten this real tight because I don't know where this is going to connect to the compressor and what angle this has to be at. That won't be that won't be obvious to me until I get the compressor on and this connected to the back of the compressor, the other end of it. So just kind of setting it up, and you couldn't see the other end of it there. But you could see the part that I was pointing at that I don't know which way it needs to point to make the best routing for the compressor. But that's set to go. All it needs to be is tightened. And I think we can connect the number 6 line to that one down there. Take this off, which I think I've already had off. O-ring goes inside that fitting. So this is the hose that's got to go to it. And there's an O-ring in there too. Need to bring my lubricant over and I can attach that. This is tightened underneath, so that may have to be loosened in order to get this into a position that's finally going to be where I want it. This fitting here is nice because the way it's made, the O-ring is protected. I don't think it matters which one you spin and which one stays stationary because they're both, neither one of the nuts you're turning is pressing up against the O-ring. There's a flange on either side of the O-ring that makes that work nicely. Some of them, if you were to turn the wrong end, the O-ring would be getting damaged by the nut that you're turning. So make sure you're not doing that. Finally got it lined up. So this may have to be moved after we're done. Maybe not too far, maybe just to go up in there. And I'll back that off to show you where I put it. Well, you almost had it in the frame, but it looks like it's going to tuck up underneath the fender right above the relays for the fan and stay out of the way nicely. I'll know better once I get the compressor on and get the dryer on and tightened, but other than that, I think that's all we can do till I'm ready to evacuate the system. I'll be able to tighten these two things down. I think my transmission cooler lines are going to have to go through here. But it's getting late. Time for me to wrap it up for the day. And kind of a good stopping point for ending the video. So I think I'll join together all my clips that I made and put this out there. As usual, thanks for watching. Hope this is helpful to some people.